So a couple days ago, we saw Brock Purdy get his big contract from the San Francisco 49ers, 5 years, $265 million with $881 fully guaranteed. Or if you care about the on-year per average, like we always talk about for quarterbacks, it was $53 million per year. And we switch over real quick to the average per year on SpotTrack. That was tied for Jared Goff with 7th in the NFL. Other quarterbacks are higher than them is Tua, which is slightly more at 53.1. Allen, Burrow, Lawrence, and Love all tied at second with 55, and then Dak Prescott still being on the top with 60 million. For quarterbacks that he is higher than for per average is Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Hurts, as well as Patrick Mahomes, all at 45 million per year. And to give you my thoughts on that, and it's I made a video back in February about this, and I'm not surprised at all that he got his money. Even though I said he's not worth it, he was going to get the contract because of just how the quarterback market is, the going rate, how everyone's getting paid that, regardless if you think they're worthy of it or not. And I think at the time for SpotTrack, they did have him close to $60 million per year, what they projected him as. And I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. It was, to me, I think it was a complete overpay if he got that full contract. And he did take a little bit less, but still a ton of money in that aspect of it. And I just worry for team-wise. That's not just the Brock Purdy thing. That's for everybody once they get the top dollars. Can they sustain that? And for Purdy, even though he's played phenomenal, you look at his resume and what he's accomplished in his 3 years, especially his first 2 years on his rookie year, not starting the full season, but coming in and leading this team to a conference championship, getting injured in that one. Who knows what would happen if he was healthy in that game, but goes there in a conference championship in his rookie season. Then his second year goes there, wins it, and goes to the Super Bowl, loses in overtime. And this past year was a huge step back overall for the whole team wise. If you look at the first 2 years, that's 2 conference appearances and 1 Super Bowl appearance. It's absolutely amazing of what he's done, and better than some other quarterbacks in terms of the Super Bowl appearance with quarterbacks like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, who have not made it there yet. That he has accomplished. But I do worry for that success, is that because of him, or is it because of the great cast and the team he has around him? And for that one, I think 2024 was a small glimpse of, yes, it was a team around them with that. When you have other quarterbacks who are better than Purdy, that have not had the talent offensively that he's had, that have accomplished more and gone farther in that regard with it. Where you had, it was a rough season all around. A ton of injuries. Deebo Samuel was banged up, didn't really do too much. Brandon Ayuk did not play well when he was in the game, but had a season-ending injury. On top of that, was out for the good portion of the year. Christian McCaffrey, who missed a good portion of the first half of the season because of injury, came back for only 4 games and then had a season-ending injury once again. Was out for the rest of the year. And also on the defensive side as well. So you look at that, it was a rough season all around, but it was the miss of that with the offense. Not having that, I always joke around saying the Avengers lineup, the all-star lineup that he had, where you didn't have the running back. And that's a huge loss for anybody, not just for Brock Purdy, but for anybody. If it was Derrick Henry being out for the Ravens, that's a huge loss for Lamar Jackson. If it was Saquon Barkley being out for the Eagles, that's a huge loss for Jalen Hurts, I should say. For I'm not gonna say elite, but for the Bills, for Josh Allen, if James Cook was out, he was a huge help, especially the touchdown range. He was 16, 17 touchdowns total this past year. That would have been a huge loss if he was down with that as well. And you go down the list with other top running backs. Jonathan Taylor for the Colts, if you want to say that for Anthony Richardson, if you want to say for the Green Bay Packers, for Josh Jacobs, and so forth. So it's just not a Brock Purdy thing. It's for any quarterback that has an elite to great running back on their lineup. But it was that where he can prove, like, I can still carry this team. I can still lead this team to a playoff appearance. And it wasn't that where to me, I think it showed the limitations of what he can do. And again, it's rough for anybody if they lose a lot of those pieces. Not just, again, a Brock Purdy thing, but when you're getting paid this money, and even before that, when people highly regard him as some people would say as an elite quarterback, a great quarterback. Some people told me he's better than Josh Allen in this regard. If that's the case, you have to show in those moments, okay, you don't have all those pieces around you. You don't have all those Pro Bowlers or all pros. Show me what you can do. I think, unfortunately, the physical part of it, he just physically can't take a game over because he's not able to. He just doesn't have the size, he doesn't have the arm strength. And I think he did get a little bit of exposed to the head point, and it just wasn't a Brock Purdy thing who took a step back. It was the whole team wise. So it's not all on him, But when you're talking about a guy, really praising him like that much, especially for, a guy going to his next contract getting paid almost $60 million a year, and this one being paid 53, there is a lot of expectations going with that. There is a lot of pressure going onto that, for they expect him to lead them to again going far into the playoffs, going to another Super Bowl, and potentially winning that one, hopefully, and for their sake. So I look at that and I don't see that for Brock Purdy, especially when, for all these quarterbacks, when they get the big deal, you got to worry about the cap situation, unfortunately letting players go, trying to, retool the team, whether it's free agency or the draft. I just worry once you start losing those pieces that it's not going to be smooth sailing for Brock Purdy. What happens if he doesn't have Christian McCaffrey anymore? They decide to, let's say today, move off of him. Is that just going to be a huge detriment to him, and he just can't play well because he doesn't have, at that point, the best running back in the NFL? Or going into 2024, where he was the offensive player of the year and potentially a MVP candidate, is that, can he still play well if he doesn't have a Christian McCaffrey? You question that. For Brandon Ayuk, he did not have a great year this past when he did play last year before the injury. But again, if he doesn't have these elite receivers like some of these other quarterbacks don't have, is he going to play well? If he doesn't have George Kittle, like some of these other quarterbacks don't have, is he going to play well? So you look at that, and I don't see that him being worth the money. And there's not just Brock Purdy. There's other quarterbacks above him that aren't worth the money. Dak Prescott is not worth $60 million a year. Trevor Lawrence, to me, is not worth $55 million a year of what he's done. Jordan Love, he had his first full season starting as a quarterback. It was great. It was really jumping the gun on giving him $55 million per year, and he did take a little bit of a step back this past year. And some people were kind of like wincing at that deal with that. Burrow and Allen are absolutely worth the contracts. Tua, to me, I don't think he is, more so because of just the injury factor of it. There's other aspects you could probably point to, but I think it's just more just the injury aspect that really makes that like contract on an average look bad. Jared Goff, I did say, when I made a video when he was announced, when he did get the contract, $53 million a year, tied with Brock Purdy now. I thought it was a slight overpay, but I completely understand why they gave it to him. And at this point now, I don't see it as an overpay. I think he is worth the money and what he's done there in Detroit. Brock Purdy, like we talked about. Herbert, you can question that if you want to look at more so the playoff, how he's done in the playoffs and the success-wise for that. It hasn't been that great. I mean, look at the two playoff games. They had a huge, fallout in that game against Jacksonville, where they had a huge lead in that one, blew it. And then you had, of course, a horrible play against Houston, where I think he had like 4 interceptions that one. So if you're talking about playoff success and how he's done there, you could say that there's no overpay in that aspect of it, but I don't think it is per se. Lamar Jackson, no doubt, is worth the money with that, and probably is maybe worth a little bit more than $52 million a year. Hurts, who just won the Super Bowl and has gone to 2 Super Bowls in his career as well, so you can say that, well, he's absolutely worth that as well. And Patrick Mahomes, who we know about, he is absolutely worth the money. Huge steal at $45 million, though. I expect him soon, not this offseason, but relatively soon, maybe a year or two, that he will get a pay raise like Josh Allen, be at least the second highest, or at least around that 53, 55 million a year, or maybe potentially making the highest above Dak Prescott, being tied at 60. So, again, it's not just Brock Purdy I'm pointing this out to for money wise. There is plenty of quarterbacks who are getting paid top dollar who aren't worth that, in my opinion, like I talked about for Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence, and so forth, that it's just the going market rate. And again, I did say in that video that Brock Purdy was going to get the money because that's how things are. And I feel like there is no other option for right now for San Francisco. And it was more, you look at last time they drafted a quarterback relatively high in Trey Lance, you could say that's arguably, for quarterback, not just for quarterbacks, but for the draft history, that it's probably the biggest bust potentially because of what they gave up to get him and what he didn't do for the 49ers. So it was, certainly pressure to sign Brock Purdy because there was no other option to have someone step in and play automatically if they did decide to move off of him. So in that regard, yes, he got his money, and there's no hate to Brock Purdy whatsoever. It's absolutely, good, all power to him that he got his contract, $53 million per year, $265 total $1 million in that deal. Hey, all power to him. If he can get that money, good for him. I just look at it for the team perspective. Again, just trying to move forward with this roster and the other big contracts as well, with George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk. You have Fred Warner, who's making good money as well, $26 million, if I have this right, $26 million this year and $29 million the year after, and he'll be a free agent in down the line in 3 years if you're counting this season. So you look at that, other players as well, Nick Bosa and so forth. So you look at that, and can they sustain it? A lot of big contracts, a lot of big names there, and once again, I just worry for looking at going over here. For PFF for the ranking wise, if he can still sustain that, because this past year was average. It was, for overall grade, if you care about he was 14th in quarterbacks at 82.4. He was 19th at passing grade. For the season stats, 20 touchdowns, which was 15th in NFL. He was top 10 in passing yards, 10th exactly, with over 3,800 yards passing. Interceptions went up a good amount, and then here's more the advanced stats for the passing wise as well. We look at the average time to throw. He had 2.99 seconds, which was 12th in the NFL, which could be detriment to him as well if you want to use that against him. But in that video, I did say that I worry like 2024 is a small glimpse of what Brock Purdy is going to be moving forward potentially because of just many moving factors, many moving parts with it. A lot of what ifs, hypotheticals, one might say. But you look at just age, contracts, health, and so forth, trades. I mean, there's a lot of things you can look that you don't know what's going to happen in the future. But with that being said, with certainly with the money that he got, that every team has to kind of retool and make tough decisions on their certain players. And I just worry offensively if they start to move away from that, if they start losing players because, again, just age, injury, contract-wise, is he going to perform to the standard like he did in 2023 when you look at bringing his stats back up here, which was absolutely phenomenal. You look at in passing touchdowns, he was third in the NFL with 31 touchdowns. He was fifth in the NFL with over 4,200 yards passing. Overall grade-wise, he was fourth in NFL with that. Passing grade, or overall grade, fourth in NFL. Passing grade, eighth in NFL. You look at that, he was absolutely phenomenal. He was considered an MVP candidate up until that big loss to the Ravens in a primetime game late in the season. But he had an absolutely phenomenal season. Again, he went to the Super Bowl, and unfortunately, they lost that game. And this year was just a huge step back with that, going from there to 6-11 and putting up okay stats. You can argue for the passing yard wise, is it just garbage yards, garbage time because of them just not playing well in that regard, kind of being 6-11 this past year. So I do worry for their sake that Brock Purdy for this year was a small glimpse of what he's going to be moving forward. Like, what is he closer to? Is he closer to, again, if you're just looking at for comparing the PFF overall grade, is he close to the fourth best quarterback in the NFL, or is he closer to that 14th overall quarterback in the NFL? So that's why I look at is he closer to being an elite quarterback, or just kind of a middle of the pack, fringe top 10 quarterback? That's how I look at, if you want to answer that. I just worry for that regard that he is more that fringe top 10 quarterback, that 14th, between 10 and 15 rank for the quarterback. I mean, is there seasons in the future where he can give you 2023 once again, depending on what the team is around them? Absolutely he can, if he has the capability to do so. But I think when you start taking pieces away, that really shows how great of a quarterback is. And you look at Burrow, you look at Josh Allen, even though Burrow has had phenomenal talent offensively. But you look at Josh Allen, where he's not had that really that cast around him. He's played better, in my opinion, and has done more. I could argue that Brock Purdy wouldn't have been successful if he was on teams that didn't have this all-star group around him like he has in San Francisco. And there's other teams too, like Lamar Jackson, who hasn't had a phenomenal talent altogether, like San Francisco as well. So you look at that, and I don't know moving forward with the money, the expectations, the pressure. Can he live up to that? And what the 49ers are going to be, and I worry for that regard, for their sake, that for his sake, that it's just going to be too much, and there's going to be too much pressure on him to play far more than what he's capable of doing. So that side of it, that's why I do worry about Brock Purdy and that moving forward for the contract wise. Is he going to live up to it? And I think that he's not going to. And it's tough for any quarterback to really, when they get that top dollar money, that they're going to be worth it. Again, going back to that, for the majority of them, they're not too much worth it. You look at the highest paid, Dak Prescott, absolutely not worth it. I mean, for playoff-wise, Brock Purdy has done more in 3 years than Dak Prescott has done in his entire career. So you look at that, and go down the line, Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love for his small time in his career, Tua, and so forth. You look at that, and it's just like these guys are getting paid top, just as much, or if not more, and haven't done that much either. So you look at that, and it's again, it goes back to, are they worth it or not? That's a whole, going back to what I said a few minutes ago. But for Brock Purdy-wise, I mean, I'm not praying on his downfall. I'm not hoping he fails. I hope he plays well. I hope he succeeds. I just worry for his sake because of just who is that quarterback and his limitations, that he's just not going to be able to live up to the expectation of the contract and what they expect him to be moving forward. So we'll see, man. No doubt about it. I expect him to be much better than 6-11 this year. I do think that they will be back in the playoffs once again. Are they going to be a threat? Potentially. I really like what they did with Robert Saleh, bringing him back as a defensive coordinator. No doubt that's going to bolster the defense up, and they'll play much better like they did last year. But offensively, we'll see what happens, especially with McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk. For those two, if they can bounce back and be closer to, not 100% of what they were in 2023, but closer to that aspect of it. So we'll see what San Francisco does and what Brock Purdy does for the 2025 season.